This is a story of Emmy, a feared Vikings hitman from Obinze, whose life took a dangerous turn after switching to Black Axe. His rise, fall, and mysterious downfall revealed the dark reality of cultism. Emmy was from Obinze, a community close to Owerri city in Imo State. His environment exposed him early to the presence of confraternity activities. Obinze was a place where young men often struggled for identity, influence, and survival. This environment made confraternity life appear attractive to some youths, especially those seeking a sense of belonging or protection. Emmy grew up witnessing these patterns and eventually became part of them. When Emmy joined the Vikings Confraternity, he did not remain an ordinary member. He stood out quickly. Confraternities usually study new members to know who has courage, obedience, and the willingness to carry out difficult tasks. Emmy fit perfectly into the role they needed. He was bold, secretive, and ready to do what many others feared. This made him rise faster than most people in his set. Because of these qualities, the Vikings used him for serious operations. He became what many described as a Vikings hitman. In confraternity terms, this means he handled dangerous assignments, enforcement, retaliation, intimidation, and operations meant to establish dominance. His actions created fear and helped the Vikings maintain influence around Obinze. Despite the fact that Owerri city was already dominated by Black Axe, Emmy still carried out operations that extended into the city. His presence contributed to the ongoing tensions between different confraternities. For many people in the community, hearing that Emmy was involved in an issue meant something serious was happening. His reputation grew stronger, and with reputation came more responsibility and risk. Over time, Emmy's activities made him known beyond Obinze. Some feared him, some avoided him, and others simply accepted the reality of his role. But inside confraternity systems, the higher you rise, the more dangerous your position becomes. A hitman is useful, but also exposed. Every operation creates new enemies, new threats, and new people waiting for revenge. Emmy's life was building layers of danger around him, even though he may not have noticed it at first. His downfall began when he made a decision that many members before him had attempted. He wanted to switch to another confraternity. Specifically, he wanted to join Black Axe, the same group that controlled most of Owerri city. Switching groups is not new. Some members get tired of their current confraternity or become curious about how life feels on the other side. But switching is extremely risky. Once someone swears an oath to a confraternity, leaving is seen as betrayal. Despite knowing the risks, Emmy joined Black Axe. This decision shocked many. It was unusual for a Vikings hitman, someone who had carried out serious tasks, to cross over to a rival group. His move raised questions. Was he running from something? Was he seeking more power? Or did he simply lose interest in Vikings? Not long after switching sides, Emmy was taken down. No one could say for sure who was responsible. Some believed it was Vikings taking revenge. Others felt it was people he had offended in the past. Some said it was simply Nemesis catching up with him. His downfall became a clear warning. The deeper one goes into confraternity life, the slimmer the chances of survival.
To understand Emmy's downfall, it is important to understand how life inside Vikings shaped him. Confraternities operate based on hierarchy, loyalty, and fear. Members do not rise by age or intelligence, but by usefulness to the group. Emmy became valuable because he could handle violent tasks without hesitation. This made some senior members rely on him heavily. As Emmy grew deeper in the system, his lifestyle changed. Confraternity involvement demands constant readiness. Members rarely rest. They must be alert to threats from rival groups, internal disagreements, or community retaliation. For someone like Emmy, every action he took created another risk. This reality is why confraternity members often live with tension, paranoia, and fear, even though they may never admit it openly. Vikings and Black Axe have long struggled for dominance in different parts of Owerri. Even though Black Axe had a stronger presence inside the city, Vikings maintained influence in surrounding communities. Because of this, operations sometimes happened across boundaries. When Emmy carried out tasks in Owerri city, he was entering territory controlled by another confraternity. Moves like this are seen as challenges or acts of disrespect. This increased the tension around him. Some admired him for his bravery, but many saw him as a threat. Whether he knew it or not, his reputation made him a target. Rival groups marked him. Community security monitored him. Even some members within Vikings became uncomfortable with his level of influence, because confraternities sometimes execute their own members when they become too powerful or unpredictable. Meanwhile, Emmy's personal life became narrower. Deep confraternity involvement cuts off normal relationships. Trust becomes limited. With time, it appeared Emmy grew tired of Viking structure. Researchers have found that some confraternity members experience frustration when they feel they have reached the peak of their role, or when the group no longer gives them what they expect. Some seek new environments, new power structures, or simply a change in identity. It is possible Emmy felt this. It is also possible he wanted to escape enemies he had created through his actions. But inside confraternity life, escape is rarely possible. This was when Emmy made the decision that changed everything, switching to Black Axe, a move considered extremely dangerous. Once a person swears loyalty to one confraternity, changing sides is seen as betrayal, no matter the reason.
Emmy's decision to leave Vikings and join Black Axe was the turning point of his life. In confraternity culture, switching sides is one of the most dangerous actions a member can take. It sends a message that the person is no longer loyal and can no longer be trusted. For someone like Emmy, who had carried out sensitive operations, the risk was even greater. He knew secrets, strategies, and internal structures. This made his departure a threat to Vikings. People switch confraternities for different reasons. Some get tired of constant conflict. Some want more power. Some want connection, protection, or recognition. Some simply get bored and want a fresh identity. In other cases, members try to switch because they feel unsafe where they are. But regardless of the reason, switching rarely ends well. Confraternities treat loyalty as permanent. The oath is taken for life, not for a season. For Emmy, the reason behind his switch was never fully known. Some believed he was running from enemies he created while carrying out Hitman duties. Others believed he wanted to join the stronger group in Owerri for better protection. Some said he had problems with certain senior Vikings members. There were many theories, but none could be confirmed. His decision remained a mystery. Joining Black Axe was also unusual because Emmy had been a visible figure for Vikings. Rival groups usually do not trust defectors easily, especially those with violent pasts. Accepting such a person means taking in someone who may cause future problems. But confraternity politics is complex. Sometimes groups accept defectors if they believe the person will bring useful information, useful skills, or extra manpower. Once Emmy switched to Black Axe, the tension around him increased. People watched him more closely. Former allies now saw him as a betrayer. Old enemies now saw him as an easier target because he was no longer protected by his previous group. His life became unstable. In the world of confraternities, once trust is broken, survival becomes almost impossible. Emmy's movement from one group to another created confusion and anger. The same lifestyle that once made him powerful now made him exposed. Not long after switching, Emmy faced the consequence many people predicted. He was executed. No one could say clearly who was responsible, whether it was Vikings seeking revenge, enemies he created during his operations, or simply the result of living too deeply in confraternity violence. His downfall served as a serious warning. The deeper a person goes into cultism, the smaller their chances of surviving.
Nobody openly claimed responsibility for his downfall. The uncertainty created confusion. Some believed Vikings carried out the execution as punishment for switching to Black Axe.
Others believed it was another Black Axe fraction because they could not fully trust a former rival hitman. Another group believed his downfall was from enemies he built during his operations in the past. In the end, nobody knew the truth, and that mystery increased the fear surrounding the incident. Within Vikings, Emmy's downfall served as a warning to younger members. It reminded them that no one is bigger than the system. The message was clear. Once you swear an oath, you belong to the group for life, and leaving is seen as betrayal. His downfall reinforced the belief that switching sides is almost always hopeless. Within Black Axe, the situation was different. Some members saw his downfall as proof that taking in defectors comes with serious risks. Others used it as an example to show that not every new member should be trusted. It created stronger internal checks, especially for people crossing over from rival groups. For the general public, Emmy's downfall highlighted the harsh reality of confraternity involvement. People repeated the same lesson. The deeper a person goes into cultism, the fewer chances they have of escaping alive. In the end, Emmy's story became a silent message across Owerri city and its surrounding areas. It reminded everyone that cultism does not end well. Once a person enters deeply, the road back is almost impossible. His life and downfall became an example of why avoiding confraternity involvement is the only safe choice.
Emmy's story did not end with his downfall. What followed revealed a deeper truth about confraternity life and why so many members failed to escape once they enter. His fall became a reference point for understanding how these groups function, how they control their members, and how dangerous the lifestyle is for anyone involved. One of the first things that became clear after his fall was that confraternity life has no safe exit. Many young people assume they can join, enjoy the influence, and later walk away peacefully. But Emmy's case showed the opposite. The oath binds members permanently, and groups view any attempt to break away as betrayal. This rule applies to all confraternities, not just Vikings or Black Axe. Once someone is inside, their movements are monitored, and their decisions are judged strictly. Another reality that emerged was the cost of going deeper into the system. Emmy had risen to the level of a hitman, a role that created enemies everywhere. A person at that level rarely does down naturally. His actions built a long list of people who wanted revenge. This is the pattern many hitmen face. Every operation they carry out adds another threat to their life. With time, these threads gather and eventually strike. Emmy did not realize how many people were waiting for the right opportunity. After his fall, older community members explained something important. Confraternity violence does not end with one person. It continues because each act produces consequences that must be answered. This cycle traps members permanently. A young person who joins today may think he is only joining for protection, but he becomes part of a chain that never stops. Emmy's fall also strengthened the message that cultism does not provide a future. It may offer temporary power, attention, or fear, but these things fade quickly. What remains is danger, instability, and regret. In the end, Emmy's journey showed that confraternity involvement is a path filled with risks, and those who avoid it stand a much better chance of living peacefully and safely. After Emmy was no more, one major issue became clearer: the long struggle for dominance between Vikings and Black Axe across Obinze, Owerri City, and Nkedi. These three areas were important because they formed a continuous zone where confraternities competed for influence, membership, and control. Emmy's life and fall were deeply tied to this larger battle. Obinze, being close to the city and filled with young people, became a key location for both groups. Vikings had operated there for years, building their presence through members like Emmy. Their influence in Obinze made the area uncomfortable for rivals. Many young men who admired street life saw Vikings as strong because of the fear and reputation surrounding them. But moving from Obinze into Owerri City, the situation changed. Owerri city was widely known as a stronghold of Black Axe. Their presence in the city was older, deeper, and more organized. They had more members, more connections, and more influence over nightlife and major streets. This made Owerri city a difficult ground for Vikings to operate freely. Nkedi, Obinze, and Owerri city and other cities became the middle ground where both groups constantly tested each other. Confraternity movements, recruitment, and clashes often passed through this area. Nkedi's large student population made the environment sensitive because confraternities usually target schools and young people for new recruits. The tension between Vikings and Black Axe across these areas created a chain reaction. When Vikings tried to expand into Owerri city, Black Axe pushed back. When Black Axe tried to influence Obinze, Vikings resisted. This ongoing struggle created a dangerous atmosphere where any small action could lead to a serious conflict. Emmy's involvement made things even more complicated. As a Vikings hitman from Obinze who operated even inside Owerri city, he symbolized Vikings' attempt to challenge Black Axe's dominance in the city. His activities were seen as bold and aggressive, but when he switched to Black Axe, the move affected the balance of power. It created confusion and increased tension on both sides. After his fall, both confraternities took his case seriously for different reasons. Vikings saw it as a reminder that betrayal carries consequences. The battle for dominance from Obinze to Owerri city to Nkedi did not end with Emmy's fall, but his story exposed how dangerous and unstable life becomes when caught between confraternity rivalries. It showed that these groups never stop fighting for territory, and anyone involved becomes part of that endless conflict.
Cultism had eaten so deep into the society that it became difficult to find any youth who did not belong to one group or another. In many communities around Obinze, Owerri, and Nkedi, it had become normal to see young men openly identifying with Vikings, Black Axe, or Buccaneers. The rivalry did not only stay inside higher institutions anymore. It spread to the streets, markets, parks, and residential areas. Everywhere you went, you could feel the division. Even friends who grew up together suddenly became strangers once they picked different colors. A Vikings member could no longer freely socialize with a Black Axe member. A Buccaneer could not walk into certain areas without someone watching him. The unity that once existed among the youth slowly disappeared. In Obinze, the situation was serious. Almost every corner had young boys connected to one of the big three: Vikings, Black Axe, or Buccaneers. Simple misunderstandings turned into bigger confrontations because each person felt they had a group behind them. Respect was no longer earned by character, it was enforced by color and identity. Owerri city was even worse. The city became the center of different clashes because every confraternity wanted dominance. Youth moved with confidence based on the strength of their group. No one wanted to be seen as weak. This pride made confrontations frequent. Which should have been a peaceful environment now lived under silent tension. Nkedi served as a middle point. Students from different schools and communities gathered there, increasing the mixture of confraternity members. Instead of unity, it created more division. Someone from Vikings walked cautiously when he entered an area controlled by Black Axe. Buccaneers were careful about where they stayed after dark. Every movement was a calculation. The worst part was the mentality. Many youth now believed that joining a confraternity was the only way to survive. They felt being neutral made them a target. This mindset continued to draw more young people into the cycle, deepening the division every year. The presence of these groups created invisible borders everywhere, borders that separated communities, friendships, and even families. The society was no longer guided by peace or cooperation, but by suspicion and rivalry. And once this division fully sets in, returning to unity becomes almost impossible.
Emmy's story and the crisis surrounding confraternities in Obinze, Owerri, and Nkedi carry important lessons that every young person should pay attention to. The first lesson is simple. Violence never leads to true strength. Many youths believe joining a confraternity gives them power, but in reality it traps them in fear, confusion, and danger. Emmy rose to the top as a feared hitman, yet his end came quietly, without honor, without certainty, and without peace. His story shows that no matter how high you climb in cult activities, the fall is always near. Another lesson is that the search for identity should not come from fear or pressure. Many youths joined confraternities because they felt alone, insecure, or unprotected. But unity built on crime can never produce real safety. Instead, it creates more enemies, more division, and more pain for families and communities. The society itself must understand that division only weakens everyone. When youths break into different groups fighting for dominance, they destroy the future they claim to be protecting. Instead of building careers, they build rivalry. Instead of chasing progress, they chase revenge. This cycle brings nothing but loss. True unity does not come from colors, symbols, or secret oaths. It comes from choosing peace and building relationships that are based on respect. If young people unite for good reasons, education, community development, business, creativity, they will achieve more than any confraternity can offer. Families, leaders, and communities must also work together to guide young people away from cultism. When society stands as one, youths will no longer feel the need to search for belonging in dangerous places. The future will only improve when we choose unity over division. That is the greatest lesson Emmy's story teaches.
Emmy's journey, from his rise as a Vikings hitman to his fall after switching to Black Axe, shows the true picture of cultism. It begins with excitement and pride, but it ends with fear, regret, and loss. His story is not different from many others who followed the same path and never returned. This final part brings everything together and explains clearly why cultism must be avoided. The first truth is that cultism offers no real advantage. It promises protection, but exposes you to more danger than you can ever imagine. It promises brotherhood, yet betrayal is common. It promises respect, but the respect comes from fear, not from genuine honor. Nothing good comes from a life where you constantly look over your shoulder. Another truth is that cultism steals your future. Once you join, your life stops moving forward. You cannot think clearly. You cannot plan freely. Every decision is controlled by the group. You lose your peace, you lose your goals, and you eventually lose yourself. Emmy reached a high position, yet he had no control over his life. In the end, he could not control how he fall either. What the society must understand is that cultism destroys more than it builds. It destroys families, dreams, friendship, unity, and community progress. A society where youth choose violence over development will never grow. Many young boys join because they feel pressured, lonely, or afraid. But these reasons cannot justify a choice that leads to destruction. The final message is simple. Avoid cultism at all costs. There is no honor in it, no peace, no gain. The only safe choice is to stay away and build a life based on education, hard work, and unity. Emmy's story must never repeat itself. It should remain a warning to every youth who is tempted to join. This content is for educational purposes only. We don't support cultism.